So the first question goes that what actually got you into rock and heavier music at first?
At first, it was my dad's music. I was listening to a lot of 70s and 80s hard rock and metal, a lot of Sabbath. There was Ronnie James Dio, there was Alice Cooper, Blue Oyster Cult, that kind of thing. And this was when I was about, I want to say 11 years old. I started getting into that, and I realized very quickly that none of my other girlfriends were listening to that at all. They looked at me like I was an alien for liking the music that I do. But it was kind of beautiful because I can trace back to that moment where I felt really weird for liking that music, and it was something that made me stand out. And I was very proud of that because it was my music, you know. I didn't care that anybody didn't like it, so I can trace that back. I don't think I wouldn't have songs like "Eye in the Fire" or "Freak Like Me" or "I Get Off" or whatever. Those risk-taking things came from that beginning of when I first got bit by the rock bug.
So what made you pick up the microphone at first, and were there like some specific vocalist that you sort of like looked up to?
I think the first one really, or the first two I should say, is probably Ronnie James Dio, Tom Kiefer from Cinderella, and I was listening to a lot of dude rock, you know, so it wasn't until I heard Ann Wilson from Heart sing live that I was like, oh, girls can do that too. That's awesome. Because up until then, I was like imitating Dio, or I was imitating Vanilla Fudge, or I was imitating, you know, the vocals from Child in Time. That you know.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to find my way, and then I remember it just kind of clicked one day where I was like, no, this is something that I can do, you know, that I understand, and that I have at least the basis of a natural talent for, and then so I started learning more about it.
So when you said that you sort of started by imitating others, did it take like long time to figure out like the right technique to do some kind of like that higher stuff that you do and more that raspy stuff that you do?
Yes. For the first couple years that we were in a band, it wasn't until I was about 16 before I started taking vocal lessons, and there was the lead singer of a band called Kix, K-I-X-X, from the 80s. I met their lead singer in one of his side projects, and he said, hey, I give lessons, would you like me to show you some things? And so I went there. I was only going to go for like one lesson just to see what was up, and I fell in love with it. And so I went, I took lessons from him for about almost 2 years, and every Tuesday in the basement of Marty's Music Store in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And that was a huge transition for me because he was giving me all of the techniques and the foundation in order to use what I had naturally. Like I knew how to sing, I had good pitch, but I wanted to know, well, how do I take it from here to here, and also how do I do it every night without losing my voice? So I owe a lot to that man. I do.
So was Halestorm like the first proper band that you had, or did you have like bands before Halestorm?
Oh no, I have been in this band since I was 13 years old. I have been in this band longer than I haven't been in this band in my life. So it was the first, and most likely it'll be the last. I don't know if I could handle 2 projects.
So what kind of like memories do you have when it comes to like the first proper tours that you did, like voice-wise? Was your voice sort of ready to do like many shows in a row?
Yes, my record for shows in a row is 11 shows in a row, like just day after day. And by that point in time, yes, I was extremely tired, and I'm like, this is not a good idea. But I've always been a risk taker, you know, like you can't go out on stage thinking I'm going to hold anything back. So I've never done that. But over the years, you find ways to use all of the gears in your voice, you know, from your lowest to your highest, to the guttural, to the soft and clear. And when you get to know your body like that, you can kind of go day by day and say, okay, so I'll wake up, like for instance, I woke up this morning and I guess I have a habit on the bus, I hum a lot, or I'm like, no, you know, so if I wake up and it's like, la, okay, it feels like everything is there, I won't have to warm up too much. If I wake up and maybe I have some allergies or I have a cold, I have to work on it a little bit more. But it's weird because it's not so much being careful, it's when you're, even the hard high screams that I do, it's more about letting go than pushing through. So everything that I do is very relaxed and it should feel like nothing. You know, I think that's the biggest thing that I even have to tell myself, because I'll get really excited. I want to go and break through a wall. It's no, relax, let it happen to you, you know.
So do you have a specific warm-up routine that you follow, and how much has that changed from the early days to today?
Well, the early days I did have a set warm-up that I do for about 25 minutes, and like with just regimented, here's how I start, here's how I end, and that is significantly changed over the years, whereas now I've learned more about how I personally operate, so I can almost predict just by the way my body is feeling what to do specifically to warm myself up in the most efficient way. So it's different every single day. Some days I will only do some of the easy things like the you know, those like the lip trills and all that stuff, just to keep the just make sure that I have that breath support. And then some days my chest resonance is already there, so I don't need to worry about that, and I'll just start working up into my high voice and making sure that's clear for the first note. This particular tour has been a challenge for me in a good way. I've been pulling it off, but we've rewritten our set so that there are certain vocal moments and intros and outros that I will do, but because of all the different keys of the songs that we have, I've had to do at least 3 of those moments up a half step or up a whole step. So I'm singing some of these songs higher than I've ever sung them. So yeah, I know most people go the opposite, like we'll start lowering things to make it easier, and I have a problem. I can't take it easy on myself.
Obviously, you've released a lot of albums with Halestorm. Are there like some specific albums that you could like pinpoint vocal-wise where you have sort of taken a step forward as a singer?
Yes. Well, I will say that it wasn't until I think our album Vicious that I was really trying to push the boundaries between where does my guttural vocal stop and where does that white noise happen. So I've actually been, over the past and then throughout COVID as well, trying to expand my range and just put more tools in my tool belt, because I'm a very selfish singer. So if I am going to be screaming my head off in one song, I want the next song to show the opposite end of that spectrum. So when we were working throughout lockdown on Back from the Dead, this album, I was very specifically going through all of those different gears that I have, and also because we were in lockdown and we didn't have a stage, I probably have some of the more aggressive vocals that I've ever recorded, and I did them mainly myself at my house with just like the freedom to just do it on your own. And so yeah, I don't know, that was I like the fact that I am continuing to grow and to learn, and I'm not, because I feel like I get bored if things get too normal or too like routine or too easy. I'm like, okay, I gotta shake it up. What am I doing next? So so this last album was very much in the like. Now, if you go all the way back to our first album, I wasn't doing any of that. I had yet to really discover like how to combine that kind of almost tuned scream, where it's this kind of tritonal higher thing. And I didn't start really getting into that until our second album, until The Strange Case Out. And even then, I hadn't pushed it totally toward that. And then we went completely rogue on our third album, on Into the Wildlife, and I was trying to be a little bit more soulful and just kind of and expand more of my blues licks and the things that I can do there. So yeah, every album I feel like I'm a different person, and I'm trying to learn more about who that person is. So.
Are there like some specific foods or drinks that you wouldn't rather have before the show, that you have felt that they somehow like affect your vocal cords, for example?
Well, I don't drink before the show anymore. And for no other reason other than mentally, because I know that I could have a beer or I could have a glass of wine before a show and be totally fine. It's not like I'm going to be drunk. I'm not that cheap of a date. I'm a little bit of a cheap date, but not one beer cheap date. But what I've realized over the course of the years is that it's more mental. Like if I know that I've had a drink or two before the set, when you walk out on stage, it's almost like your body tricks you into thinking you had more. So I've gone on stage before, not drunk, but thinking I am, and thinking, oh, am I loose now? Am I not? Is my muscle memory going to be there? Are those finite movements that I have to use to navigate? Is that so? To be mentally prepared, I keep it dry until after the show. So I drink a lot of water. I don't really do the tea thing. I've never really been a tea person. Occasionally at the end of the night, like if I'm going to bed, I'll have something like that, but I don't really have any other magic feathers other than that. I think I've stayed away from that because I know singers that have like, if I don't have the ginger in the tea, it's going to be a bad day. And so I've been trying to stay away from those little, tokens. I got into it in, I think it was 2018. I was doing a lot of like bone broth before the set because I would be like, well, I don't want to like be full from a meal, but I want to have some kind of sustenance. But then that got to the point where I'm like, I ran out of bone broth. What am I going to do today? And then you have like, a baked potato and some steak or whatever. It's like, am I going to be too full? Now I just try not to think about that. I do what I can. I eat about, probably about 2 hours before the show, so you have time to digest. You don't want to have a full plate of lasagna and then go out and walk on stage. You don't want to do that. You'll be tired. So yeah, little things, but really I keep it simple. You drink a lot of water, you make sure you're hydrated, you warm up to some degree, and then when you walk out on stage, stop thinking about it. Just have fun and let whatever happens, happens.
I have 2 questions left, and the second last one goes that what were your parents' reactions when they heard the first time that you are forming a rock band and you are screaming your lungs out?
Well, my mom has a funny story about that actually, because she just was telling me this story about how when I was in kindergarten and I was a little girl, she got a call from my teachers at my school saying, you need to tell your little girl to be louder, because they were trying to teach us to yell out for the firemen, or like if there is a fire, if you're trapped, you have to be loud, you have to let them know where you are. And I wouldn't do it. I would not be loud. I didn't want attention. I was a very shy kid. So now my mom thinks it's so hilarious that I literally make my living yelling now. So I've come full circle from not being able to just say, hey, I'm fire over here. So yeah, I think both of my parents have always been really supportive. My mom always wanted to sing and she wanted to play guitar, but her parents wouldn't let her. My dad still is a bass player, but his parents didn't like him playing in a band either. So when my brother and I were like, we're starting a band, it's called Halestorm, my parents were like, you know what? We're going to support you in this because we never got the chance to, with our parents. So I owe them a lot. They got a lot of shit for it too. All of our neighbors, our extended family are like, you're leading your kids down the wrong path. Why are you encouraging them to do this? They should go to college. They should get normal jobs. My parents were like, this is what they want to do. they're gonna do it anyway, even if we disagree. So yeah.
Last question. Any advice that you would like to give to a like young rock/metal vocalist who is just about to start their journey?
Just about to start your journey. Don't preoccupy your mind with being famous, with having success, with signing to a label. There are no rules. There are no rules in how you do this. When we first started, no idea what we were doing. We could barely play our instruments. We didn't have some rich uncle in the business to show us the way. We just literally played anywhere and everywhere they'd let us play. And we just so happened to find band members that became our family, and we all still really like each other. You have to do it because you love it, because it gets hard. If it's too much for you to practice, if that's too hard, if going to a show and having to, you know, load in next to the dumpster or up 3 flights of stairs is too hard, you're never going to make it in this business, because it is a hard thing to do, but it's worth it because it's what you love. So yeah, just literally that.
Thanks a lot for.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much.